Welcome to another episode of The Brand Culture, a podcast and video show which brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you won't miss a new episode. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted and privileged to have a conversation with Stian Rustad. Stian, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Allow me to introduce you to the audience, Stian. You are an innovator, a serial entrepreneur, angel investor with a number of successful startups, and you've been investing in companies since 1997, I believe, in over 40 companies. I understand you actually lost count in how many. And these companies, they vary from IT, accounting, finance, driving schools, manufacturing, defense. You're all over the place. Currently, you're the founder of and CEO of 24/7 Office. So you're educated in business, European studies, finance, law, engineering, even French literature. You are the Entrepreneur of the Year by the Seed, nominated by the Seed Global Forum, Scale Up Award by the International Entrepreneur Conference, and you live in Norway. Is that correct?
That's about right, yeah.
Okay. Hey, Stian, when you meet a stranger in a business context, how do you introduce yourself?
Yeah, that's a kind of thing. That's one thing that I've been thinking more about lately, because I used to just think about myself as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
But lately I realized that, I'm more and more actually an investor as well, and maybe it's more correct to say serial entrepreneur and investor. So that's what I would say now.
Okay. Although even if it's serial entrepreneur and investor, to me, when I just shared your bio, I think you're selling yourself short, because you have a background in business, finance, law, engineering, French literature. So, you sound to me like the eternal Renaissance man who knows a lot about a lot of things.
Yeah, that's probably one of my strengths, is that I know quite a lot about quite a lot. But of course, I'm one of those who doesn't know everything about anything. So, but it's definitely right. I think my strength is that I know it's easy for me to connect the business part and the tech part, and also a quite good understanding of the society and how the trends within everything when it comes to more like political landscape or the legal landscape and all those different landscapes that you have to run as, even though if you look at, most entrepreneurs look at the world from a micro perspective, just around their business, right? But I try to put it into a larger perspective to foresee the future and the needs for the products, etc.
Okay. Now, where did your journey start, I would say, education-wise? So what was the first course you took?
Yeah, so I studied at the university in Telemark, where I studied engineering, electronic engineering. And at that time, there was also quite a lot of programming on that course. So, and I always liked to do programming. I started to do that when I was a kid with my Commodore 64, with the BASIC, etc. But at that time, internet was starting to, become a thing. Mm-hmm. So I became very interested in internet. So that's, but I didn't have the idea for 24/7 Office at that time. But I started to understand internet at that time.
Okay, so I'm hearing engineering. Interested in the internet. I'm trying to figure out. So, at what point did you realize, now I also need to have a law degree or a finance degree?
Yeah, so that's during my studies, I realized that I wanted to start a company. I wanted to build something on my own. So I very early realized that. My mother says she realized that I would start something for myself since I was a kid. But at least it was very clear for me when I was studying engineering But I understood that if I had a degree in economy as well, it would be so much easier for me to run a company, start a company, raise money, and all the stuff that's needed to run the company.
Yeah.
So then I started and I took a bachelor degree at BI, Norwegian Business School.
Okay. So the ambition was, okay, I want to have my own company. In order to have my own company, I need to educate myself. So it was a very specific, conscious choice. I need to have those skills in order to achieve my ambition for my own company.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Now, normally we start to ask these questions at the end of the interview, but is this like generic advice you would also give young people starting who want to start their own entrepreneurship? Get yourself educated?
Absolutely. For me, it's easier when you have education. But the most important thing I would say are all the other values within a person. And the most important is grit. You know, the ability to focus, work hard, and never give up. I would say anytime I look at a case, I think grit is more important than education, especially if they have the specific knowledge about what they're starting up anyway.
Okay. So how do you recognize that?
Yeah, that's a question I get quite a lot, and it's a difficult. I don't have I wish I had a formula for that, but of course I have to look at how the person behave and their history. I talk about a little bit what they've done during everything from childhood when they started to do sports. Did they give up and start everything something new every year? Did they continue? Did they finish things? It could be in sports, it could be in education or a work they had beside their job. So everything that they really don't quit too easily, no matter what it is. That's what I'm looking for. And it's also about how long they've been trying to work with their business now without giving up, how easy they give up to actually get contact with me and even get me to invest. The longer they work and harder they work, the more I know that they have what it takes, because starting up it's normally it's extreme. Very few people manage to build a company without hard work.
True. I see that and I observe that in my environment. Now, a question there relates to that. A lot of people do a startup from their own attic or their own garage. Some very specifically go to the startup communities because then you're going to have like-minded people together. What would you recommend? Do it on your own and surround yourself with the right people, like-minded people?
Yeah, that's a quite important choice. I think when we started up, there were no such thing as startup hubs or angel investors and the ecosystem that you have today, especially in Norway. You had it on the West Coast in the US and some other places. But we have to just start all by ourselves. There was no incubator you can go to, etc. But I think if you manage to get into an incubator, I would say you increase your chances of success tenfold, maybe more. Because they have the network, the experience, they have the investor contacts, and they have other companies that they have invested in, which you might find synergies on marketing or sales or development or whatever. So I would say, in general, I would say if you can get into one of the great incubators, especially like Y Combinator, for instance, I would definitely absolutely recommend to do that.
Okay. What's more difficult, creating a successful startup or creating a successful scale-up? When does it become easy? When is it difficult?
Yeah, I think it goes in different stages. At first is really hard because you don't have a product, you don't have money, you don't have customers, you don't have anything. You just have your ID and your grit. So I think absolutely the toughest part is the first like 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
In general, that's how I see it, and that's where most people give up. People that actually shouldn't give up because they're just like 6 months, 12 months away from the breakthrough. And then I would say the next phase is that when things are getting serious, you're not like, you can't sit with your team around one table anymore to make all the decisions. You can't just, one table, you just make a quick discussions, you all know each other and you make a decision. You're starting to have teams and different layers of the teams, and you're starting to be politics and all that stuff. Then it's getting a little bit harder, I think. So you have to navigate through that as well. And that's the part where many people, in my opinion, should discuss whether they should, give the management away to a more like professional manager who likes all this more building routines and systems and on the general managing part, and rather be a part of the biz dev team or the creative part of the team, or the pioneer role. So that's the next hard part, I think.
Yes, yeah, because I do see a lot of people who set up a startup. They are the brains of the company. They have the idea of the product or the service in their mind, but they're not that generic manager who can manage people. So they, if they acknowledge that, they become a CTO or something like that, and they let other people take care of that. Sometimes they are in the way of their own success. How often do you come across those situations in where you are investing?
I think I see it quite a lot, but normally sorts out. But it's very sad when it doesn't sort out, and you destroy a good business and a good opportunity, of course. But normally it just like takes a little bit time, but it always, or more or less always, sort out. That's my experience, if you handle it correct.
Yeah. So how do you give that message? Straight in somebody's face, or do you in a friendly manner? What's the best way you've come to experience to share?
What I try to do in my investment when that time has come, we try to talk around it and ask the question: how do you like it? How do you like to build, the management team, and how do you like the politics and all that stuff? And normally they start, oh, no, that's a little bit boring. I would rather, focus on this or building that, or take that new spin off and build it, maybe start something new. So that's the normal answer, actually, when the time has come.
Okay.
But sometimes they think, no, I'm doing great. I want to build this company bigger. And at that point, he might be right. The person grows with the company. What we thought it wouldn't be good for the company, actually, he kind of grows into the role. That we've seen that, and we've seen people who later realize it. I think we should make a rearrangement here. But we talk to them, I would say, as a process. We discuss it. How do you like it? What do you think? I think this is something that I don't think you're good at, but I think you're very good at this. What do you think? It's more like a process normally that goes through months or maybe years, depending on the company and the growth and the person. Yeah.
We're going to come back to your serial entrepreneur, your investment role, but you also are still an entrepreneur yourself. At the moment, you are the CEO of 24/7 Opera.
Yeah, so I was until recently CEO of the US operation. Yeah. But I'm now back in Norway, and we have a Norwegian CEO, because when I gave away my CEO title for the entire company before I went to the US, and I started US operations, and I was the CEO of the US operation until recently, but now we have another CEO there as well.
Okay.
So now I'm actually the biz dev guy. So I'm the guy who said, okay, I'll do the things that I like the best, and that's create business opportunities.
Okay. So does that mean you followed your own advice, which you give to others? Say it was time to step down and let others take control?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right.
Okay.
And the thing is that in my case, personally, I think I could have done it. I have the knowledge and experience to do it. is more about what I would like to do, what makes me happy. So for me, it's more like what I think it's the best for myself, actually. I'm not sure if I would be a perfect leader for a large company. That's not what I'm telling, but it's not like there was no pressure from outside or from the organization. It was more like, I feel like this is what I think is fun. This is what I would like to do. And I think I would add most value doing this, run these biz dev processes.
Okay. So where do you find your passion? What is your passion in this context?
I love to create new stuff. Whether it's new technology, new functionality, new business ideas. I love to improve things. So when I can improve how people work, how they live, improve businesses, processes, improve the environment, or do something that is useful for the world, I love it in all forms. Whether it's software or physical projects or products or services.
Now, a follow-up question on that reply is, how do you then identify success? What does that mean to you?
I think my most important measurement of success is number of employees. I think that's really, really, then I really feel like I'm creating something useful. We need people need work. We need to create value. We need to create tax money. And the number of people that I have in my company is also a measurement of how much impact we actually do for other companies and for the world. So I would say my measurement is probably the number of employees.
Okay, and I like the answer, by the way. Would that make you also a social entrepreneur?
I think so, because we try to, in everything we do and everything when we invest, there always has to be something that normally we try to invest most when it's really good for the environment and the society. But we can also invest in just things that's just fun, which is just like, it doesn't make just to make people happy, but it doesn't destroy the world, kind of. So we do that as well. But we definitely don't invest in coal or oil or things that we feel is just damaging the world.
Okay, no, that's a good point. Now, is this like, I mean, you call your company 24/7. That's the name of the company. Is that also your work attitude? I mean, can you take time off, or is this a continuous part? Is this your life?
To found a company, it's definitely, and I think we're still founding this company. It's like we have so many plans to grow this tenfold, this company still. So even though we've been around for quite a while, we really have really big ambitions. So we feel like we're still founding this company.
Okay.
Even though we're listed and all that stuff. I think you cannot do that if you're not willing to work a lot. So I definitely work a lot. Maybe a lot of people would say that I work 24/7 office. I just got questions, when do you sleep? Because I get an email from you late at night and early in the morning. But the thing is that I think I'm good at, work hard when I work hard and work focused. And then, take a break. Whenever I feel tired, feel like I'm not productive, I just go for, do some exercise, stay with my family, watch a movie, whatever, and then I can start working again. So I definitely work quite a lot of more hours than normal. I realize that, but I still think I'm good at, enjoying myself and be a part of, especially my family's life.
Okay, so there is that still a healthy work-life balance as far as you can assess yourself.
I think so, but I think most people who looked at it from outside would say probably I work too much.
Yeah.
But I'm happy, and I think my family's happy as well. They used it. They know that, my wife knows it. This is really an important part of my life. So yeah.
Good. Okay. Now, what would you say in all the years you've been working are your biggest learnings? What are the mistakes you've made over the years?
Yeah, I think my biggest mistake that I ever did was not to think big enough and move to the US when I started my company.
Okay.
So started an internet company in Norway. As I told you, we didn't have those incubators. We have very few investors. Didn't have venture companies in the same, and seed investors, IT investors. It was all about raw materials, kind of fish and oil and stuff in Norway. So I should definitely move to the US, and if I spend the same amount of energy, I think we could be 10 times as big now, because access to both market and funding and advice.
Now, is that a mistake you could still make today, or has the world changed that you don't necessarily have to move to the States or another hotspot in this world?
Yeah, the cool thing now is that you can actually do this. You can stay at least a lot in Norway. Of course, you probably have to go over to the States and to meet investors and do a lot in the States. But you can also live more, at least both places. So we've seen startups where a part of the team moves to the US for a while, and then they go back for a while and back and forth, but still manage to build the business in the US, and maybe have a combination of Norway and US. For instance, the sales and marketing in the US, but still have the development in Norway, because you have very good and stable developers in Norway, actually cheaper than it would be on the West Coast. So that would make sense. So we've seen a lot of combinations like that lately.
Okay. Now, how would you translate your experience to advice to young entrepreneurs? Now, how often do they knock on your door for advice?
Quite often, and more often. So I get probably a couple of investment cases in my mailbox a day.
A day, okay.
Yeah, so it's quite a lot. So I would say like every working day, more or less. So it's quite a lot. Sometimes it's more, sometimes less, of course. But the reason why I get so many is that I'm quite broad in where I invest. I can invest in an idea. We've done that several times, like really angel investment, and we could be seed, and we also do more heavy lifting, and we also do in one of my investment companies, we restructure companies which are in distress as well. So that's why I probably get so many leads. It's not only like typical tech software companies.
Okay. Do you still handle these requests personally, or do you outsource it to a colleague? Say, hey, can you please filter this for me because it's too much?
Yeah. So what we do is that I've organized my investment in 3 different companies, and 24/7 Office also have its own company. So what I do is that I dispatch the different investment cases. Some of them are just go into the trash, of course, because they're not prepared enough. The PowerPoint is like they're not managing to explain their business idea, and if they can't do that even in a PowerPoint, I just skip it. It might be a good idea, but for me, that's the minimum that you have to be able to do, is like to present your business idea and your USPs and why I should invest, all the basic, the market, and
okay. So people should do their homework before they get a foot in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. The same with the meeting. I expect them to be able to answer quite a lot of my questions and be well prepared.
Okay.
So then I dispatch it to different investment companies. I have one which focus on more industrial cases and distress cases, and we have one which focus more on software and internet, and we have one which focus more on it could be infrastructure, whether it's more infrastructure like traditional business, or it could be services companies like accounting, or it could be finance or whatever.
Okay. Now, you just said earlier in the call that you define success at how many employees an organization has. Now, if you look at your own future, you can keep on being the entrepreneur yourself or the investor. Where do you feel you can create the biggest success being the entrepreneur yourself or supporting others as an investor?
Yeah, I'm kind of in a breaking point there. I'm not sure where I should focus just on investing going forward, or building another company or several companies.
Yes. Okay. So how, I mean, we've talked about how you advise other people in startups. So where do you get your inspiration from, and who advises you in this case?
I get a lot of inspiration from my colleagues. We have a team which is great.
Yeah.
So I would say that a lot of our success is because of the team.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is because of the employees. So when it comes to the team, it comes to my co-founders and partners. They are great people, and because we find the right people to work for us, that's the main reason for success. Okay,
so does that mean it's not lonely at the top? You have enough people to talk to?
Yeah, I've always wanted to build business together with people, so I'm not a lone wolf at all. I like to build things, have fun together, celebrate the victories together, and cry together when it goes wrong. So that's what I try to always do. Yeah.
So how often do you drink champagne, and how often were you crying?
Yeah, I would say that we could go always 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So it's like every day we could drink champagne, and every day we should cry a little bit. So it's and things move very fast everywhere that we've invested. So it's a lot of victories and disappointments every day. Okay,
so that sounds a little bit like taking your own advice. You talked about tenacity, the grit. Is that like the main, I would say, North Star for anybody out there? Have that grit and you get there?
Yes, grit is the most important thing, because it always takes so much more energy and time to make success than you ever thought. But I think one second thing that I always like to talk about and explain to founders is to learn to fail, and to fail fast, and learn from the mistakes, admit them, and change. So we see that so often that people are trying to hide their mistake, even if there's employees or some of our investment cases, whatever, or they don't want to admit it. So they try to work very hard to make it work when they probably know that it's quite unlikely. They were wrong, and they should, rethink and pivot their idea or ask for advice, etc. So definitely admit when you do something wrong and change it very, very fast. If you have that ability, I think that's a very, what we see is that the people have again, many times larger chance of success than the others. And the other thing is that people, if they see that they fail and they don't ask for advice, that's the second problem. So people are sometimes too proud. If they admit they're doing something wrong, they try to find a solution themselves. But what I've realized is that the best entrepreneurs are those who both admit that something was wrong and ask for advice. In their team, they ask us as investors or partners or people they have as mentors or whatever. Those, if you have all those three combinations, can almost guarantee that you will have success. Okay. Because even though if you have a bad idea, you just pivot it, you find another solution on your own or with help.
Stian, that's great advice. I love that you're willing to share that with the brand called you, with this audience who is interested to learn from people with knowledge and experience. So I want to thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. And hopefully we'll meet in the future, and we can talk soon again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.